In episode number 372 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover the HBO Max presentation and everything that is coming to this service next year.
We also have another record-breaking milestone for Joker.
Our comic book highlight this week is Tales from the Dark Multiverse Death of Superman #1.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am preppy villain Daniel.
Where is there a preppy villain in that game?
On this podcast, every single week apparently.
And I am your almighty Emperor Kelli.
For those of you new to the show, the way we format it is first we go through some news, we head into our Patreon shout-out, which are the thank yous to everyone who make the show possible. This week we have the What's New on Netflix highlights for November. We go into our comic book highlight, and finally we end it with the Broke Kept block, which does include a couple of questions from you.
Ooh. But our first bit of news is some pretty fluffy, cuddly news. Build-A-Bear is expanding its Pokemon plush library with the latest edition of Who Cares?
It is a Pokemon that turns into your favorite Pokemon of all time,
But
and
is
you
it,
say, who
but
cares?
Is it my favorite Pokemon of all time?
It's the pre-evolution to it. It might as well be.
I have always felt that they have pulled this Pokemon out of their butt.
I think it is one of the original ones that did not make it in Gen 1, so it is technically a Gen 1 Pokemon. If I'm remembering this correctly, the baby Pokemon were supposed to be in that first game.
Pulled them out of their butt. I always got so angry at baby Pokemon because the logic 9-year-old in me, right, was saying, how did they not know there was a Pokemon before this one? Because you would have.
So you think that they mainly just threw these together, and that's your reasoning for not liking Pichu?
No,
we're talking about Pichu.
Okay, we're talking about
confused.
Pichu. You can get a Pichu from Build-A-Bear. Okay, moving on. Because how in the world? Okay, if there was something before my dog, right? How would I not know that something was there until a later game?
I don't know if that makes sense. I don't follow your analogy.
That makes so much sense.
Are you kind of equating it to Ace's parents? Like if we knew them? Because that's the only thing that's before Ace.
No. Okay, so if something turned into Ace, right? Ace evolved into who she is now, right? I spend my whole life raising this dog. We have years of science backing up that this is what Ace does, and if I give her a Thunderstone, she turns into something else. Now suddenly we realize, oh wait, something comes before Ace.
So that's the reason. Okay, so then how do you feel?
Because it doesn't logically make sense. How did they not know that an egg hatched into a Pichu that turned into a Pikachu? It was always just Pikachu and Raichu.
So you don't like Pichu because of that very reason,
yes,
is what you're saying.
Because he makes no sense.
Now, how do you feel about Raichu?
Raichu's fine. He was always there.
All right, I didn't trap you. I was going to trap you in your own logic, and that's not the case.
Did you not feel that way?
No, because I don't care about Pikachu any more than any other Pokemon.
But any of the baby Pokemon.
Okay, they did the same with Venusaur. They announced a Mega Venusaur, and I like him just fine, too.
Yeah, but that's fine, because you give him an extra stone, and then he turns it up. So maybe they didn't have the stone in any of the rest of the regions. But they still would have had baby Pokemon in any of the rest of the regions, so why did Johto know about it and not Kanto?
Because they couldn't fit enough data in the first games, so they left them out of the game, and they're in the sequel.
Okay. 9-year-old me didn't know that. And so much older than 9-year-old me is still very angry about it.
You're a Gen 1er. That's what it is.
Okay, fine. I'm a Gen 1er. Whatever.
Build-A-Bear, the company, is now adding Pichu onto its plush library. You can build a Pichu in-store for $29, or you can buy a pre-stuffed one, which is what I did with Bulbasaur, which includes a couple of extra things that are exclusive to the online store for $61.
The bundle for Pichu includes a repeat ball hoodie, an exclusive Pikachu Pokemon card, a Pichu sound chip, and a blue Pichu cape.
Do it again.
The bundle includes a repeat ball hoodie, an exclusive Pikachu Pokemon card, a Pichu sound chip, and a blue Pichu cape.
So you can only get those if you go for the online bundle. That was one of the reasons why I went for the Bulbasaur one, is I was somehow illogically afraid that they were going to sell out, and I really wanted that exclusive Build-A-Bear Bulbasaur card, because I have every Bulbasaur card except for 2, and I needed to continue that collection. Also, I was afraid of them actually selling out for Bulbasaur because I thought I remember them having trouble fulfilling the earlier Pokemon that they first came out with. And the other reason, too, is they didn't add Bulbasaur's ass until after Vulpix, until after Meowth, and well after Squirtle, Charmander, and Pikachu. So I was just glad that they had Bulbasaur. I needed to be there to support the fact that they went, fine, we're going to lose money on our asses and release your goddamn Bulbasaur. And I supported them as I said I would, and I got my Bulbasaur.
He's sitting over there with his little scarf on.
Here's my question. Do you think that Pichu will sell less than Bulbasaur?
I mean, yes. Do I think they should have released a Pichu? Absolutely not.
Who would you have put ahead of Pichu from Generation 1?
Ahead of Pichu? All of Generation 1.
Every single one?
Every single one of them. They've done Eevee, yes? Eevee's already out. I would probably even go for like Clefairy first.
There you go. I don't know if they've done Clefairy, but that's a good one.
I think Clefairy would have been better over Pichu. I just don't see a lot of fan base behind Pichu. I get that he comes before Pikachu, but he's still a lame Pokemon.
I would have done Raichu.
Raichu would have been good. I would have probably done like, what were the other Pikachu looking ones? Plusle and Minun? I would have done them before I did Pichu.
How about a Snorlax?
Oh,
Charge $100
yes.
for a big ass Snorlax.
Like a giant Snorlax that you could like crawl inside and just be safe.
Be safe for life.
Even Geodude. I would have done Geodude before Pichu.
Someone else that is looking plush-like these days, especially after certain redesigns, is Sonic the Hedgehog for the upcoming movie. There were a couple of leaked images of this now redesigned Sonic after fans whined and complained and cried and talked about how they were not going to go see this movie until the studio changed the design. The studio then went, and whatever artistic freedom and expression that these Sonic the Hedgehog designers had went right out the window because people kept putting up the memes and making jokes and saying they were not going to go see the movie. They then spent additional money to redesign the character for the movie, and now we have that leaked image. What does he look like? And are you at all happy? Do you even care?
He's just a little chubbier. That's all that I see. He just ate some pizzas, put on some pounds.
He looks shorter, too.
Probably. He looks more like Sonic that we're used to. I didn't have a problem with him either way. I'm upset with the studio for changing it, though, because I feel like people are always going to bitch about something on the internet.
Yes.
And to give into that and say this vision that we had, I'm going to alter it based upon people who don't make movies and don't have a vision for this and probably aren't really going to see the movie anyway, then that's upsetting that they took such a drastic change because of that.
That's my main issue, too, is that they now catered and said it's okay to whine and bitch online until the studio changes the existing product from the artistic vision. That's an issue right there. They weren't honoring the integrity of the original filmmakers, the designers. Instead, they went ahead and changed it, very much like Warner Brothers did with Justice League. They took all the whining and complaining that bloggers and reviewers did with Batman v Superman, and they said, well, let's get rid of Zack's original vision and instead give this Happy Meal junk food version of Justice League based on what they thought bloggers and fans wanted, what they thought the MCU viewers that were not going to see these movies anyway, very similar to what you were just saying about Sonic the Hedgehog, and trying to appeal to them instead of to the viewers that they already had. And you're seeing something similar here where now it looks like a less expressive Sonic the Hedgehog than what they wanted. It's not what they originally were going for, and that's why I have an issue with this. And now there's this campaign online of these Sonic the Hedgehog fans going, well, they changed it, we better go out and support it. And it's like, yeah, you better fucking do it now, because if you don't, then it's further like they're really out on their asses. I'm not seeing it because now it's not what they were originally intending. It's not what they wanted. And it is instead catering to these whiners and crybabies. So no, screw that. I was excited. I wanted to see. You guys heard it when we were talking about that first trailer, and it's unfortunate. It's really a shame.
Joke's gonna be on all of us when they when they leaked these images, but that's not really what they did, and they just kept it the same.
Oh my God, that'd be so great. I'd go twice.
You'd buy tickets and then not even see the movie because we don't have time. You would just support them.
Just buy a ticket every day and not show up. That's the Disney method with Captain Marvel, right?
Yeah.
Just buy up tickets and
just don't
inflate
go.
numbers. Maybe we'll get a trailer, and we'll probably talk about the trailer since why not? Just talk about how much weirder looking might be.
Why not? I caught that.
But I will not be there to support the studio mandated change for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
You should complain about it until they change it again.
Yeah, there's got to be an original cut that we can push for. Hell yeah, man. Why not?
Really? Who's the director?
I don't know, but
artist?
Based on the trailer, and maybe they just finished animating those scenes and did it for the trailer. But if there is like a finished version of that, release that one too, because you'll get my money. We've got some news on the television side with anyone that is still sticking with the CW.
Warner Brothers Television has announced the latest Arrowverse spin-off show on the CW will be Superman and Lois.
This is, of course, using the Superman that was introduced in Supergirl. You and I have jumped off of the CW. The shows just continue to decline in quality, unfortunately. It is what it is. It has its fans. It's a little too over dramatic, I think, for our tastes, where it does seem like more of a soap opera show than a comic book superhero show. But, a lot of people like that stuff and they're excited for Infinite Crisis. I don't like that Superman. I haven't even seen that Lois. We dropped off of Supergirl as well. But to anyone still paying attention, you will have a Superman TV show.
I'm excited.
Let me know how it is. You can review it for the show. Now you have to review it for the podcast.
Cool. I'm not going to watch it. What are you talking?
Then why are you excited for it?
Because it's probably a great romance, but I don't have time.
Do you like that Superman?
I don't know. I've only seen his picture and I was like, he's no Dean Cain.
Superman. There's that picture of him next to Brandon Routh as the Kingdom Come Superman, and there's that meme tweet of, oh, who's this Superman cosplayer next to Brandon Routh? It's so crazy how weird in quality it differs, even though they're from the same show and the same universe.
I don't know. I hope the show does well. I love Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. Of course, I watched it many, many years ago, so maybe it doesn't really hold up to what I remember. There's so many great things you can do with these characters, and we see it in the comic books, and I would love to see that on TV, but who am I kidding? They're not going to do those things, but I can hope. I can hold hope in my heart.
If the CW is not for you, we've got options. That's a nice thing about living during this age of, yes, superheroes are the action movies of today.
What a great time to be alive.
But we have options, exactly. And one of those options is HBO Max. Coming next year, they had a full business presentation for stockholders and for people that were really curious as to what is coming to this service. So it was really there for consumers too.
And the service is way more than I ever imagined. So their presentation announced that they will have exclusive streaming rights to Morty and Rick, South Park, we love that show. I think we've seen almost every episode.
I think we're behind one season.
Okay, but still close. And more along that line. We also have the Arrowverse showrunner, Greg Berlanti, will headline a Green Lantern live action show.
How big is that?
Ginormous.
I was initially nervous about Greg Berlanti head running that because he is a CW guy, but then one of my subscribers at the shop reminded me that he also worked on the Doom Patrol show.
Oh man,
so
Doom Patrol is great.
He's got some good stuff under his belt, so that's kind of what kind of talked me off the edge of, all right, you know what, this really has a shot. And I love Green Lantern. I think the comics, the over 9 years of comic books that Jeff Johns gave us were some of the best in DC, especially in the last 20, 25 years. So if they can somehow translate that successfully into a full run of TV, which you can do, there's so much content there, and they better use Jeff's run. as the skeleton to the show, then great. I don't want it to be a dramatized Green Lantern show. I want it to be about the Sinestro Corps War. I want Blackest Night in there, but I don't want Diet Blackest Night. I don't want what they've done with the CW, where it's not really Infinite Crisis, or where it's not really the Reverse Flash, and they're more like the TV versions of that, and that's fine for what it is, and maybe it's more consumer friendly. But if we're talking HBO Max, if we're talking about something that's trying to go in the same integrity as Doom Patrol, then take the Jeff Johns comic books, give us those stories, and you will have viewers for years.
This is HBO. Let's not kid ourselves. There will be boobs in this show.
And because it is HBO, do you think that the budget is going to be larger? Are we going to have a lot of space battles?
I hope so.
Are we going to get a lot of aliens?
I hope so.
How much makeup work will there be? How much CGI will there be?
I don't know. But I hope a whole lot of makeup work, because you and we love those practical effects. And I hope that's the direction that they go in, because it would be massive. Can you imagine if they just tacked on that extra forehead onto Sinestro?
I hope that there isn't a jump down from season 1 to season 2 where they said, well, there weren't a lot of viewers here, so let's cut the budget. And suddenly there's a lot of episodes where they just have to stick around Oa.
Just hang around Oa, solve problems
mysteries,
here.
Yeah. Hal's like, I feel more comfortable in my Earth outfit, so I'm just going to wear a t-shirt and jeans. We're not going to do the outfit. Man, that would suck. They pull a Swamp Thing.
They didn't even put any makeup on him.
That'd be too bad.
You see recording devices coming down into the shot.
Boom mic.
They can't reshoot.
That'd be too bad, but I'm excited for this Green Lantern TV show. I'm also curious as to whether or not they are taking any of the ideas from that Green Lantern Corps film that was originally going to come to the DCEU and possibly implementing them into this. Seeing that Greg Berlanti is involved, I know he likes to do his own thing, maybe not, but there's a little bit of hope, and hopefully they tell us, yes, there was intention, and kind of like Disney Plus is doing with the Obi-Wan show, where it was originally a movie and they developed it into a TV show, and I'm sure they took elements from there and are expanding on it, so hopefully they're doing the same here, and I think if it's confirmed that Hal and Jon Stewart are the two main characters, then I think that will kind of tell us that they are adapting that script and maybe repurposing it into a long-term TV show.
Do we need to see Mogo in this?
We'd better see Mogo. That's a staple in the Green Lantern Corps. Absolutely. We better see Sinestro. If they build up Sinestro, how huge would it be if he did start out as a Green Lantern member as well? And they would start right where Green Lantern Rebirth was at the beginning with Jeff Johns. That's your starting point. That's what you do with HBO's Green Lantern.
Does Sinestro need to be handsome in this?
They got to pull it, or they need to pull a Snape, where at first he's not, but then as the character becomes more sympathetic, they kind of spruce him up a bit.
Once the yellow takes over, he transforms like Sailor Moon, from green into yellow, and then he just gets handsome.
The forehead gets a little bit smaller. The hair isn't as messy anymore. It's all slicked back.
His mustache gets a little neater.
Suddenly there's a little love story where we find out about his wife in his previous planet that we got.
But then he's got to burn the tapestry.
That was so great. That was amazing.
So good.
But in case you're not a DC fan, which you're listening to this, obviously you are.
Obviously.
But there is also key third-party programming that is heading our way, including stuff from Warner Brothers, New Line Cinema, DC Comics, CNN, TNT, TBS, True TV, Turner Classic Movies. That's the one that I said, hell fucking yes.
I know, I still don't know what that is.
I've wanted TCM for so long, but we don't have cable. But now I get it with HBO Max. You're going to get Cartoon Network. You're going to get Adult Swim, Crunchyroll for the weebs. We were just talking about the weebs last week.
Yeah.
Now you're getting way more than the Miyazaki films. You're getting Crunchyroll on there. Rooster Teeth, which I know is huge because of the Ruby fans that come in and ask me when the next issue of Ruby is almost every week. Looney Tunes. I get to watch my Speedy Gonzales cartoons. Hopefully those aren't censored out. I need them. And so much more. Talk about fucking content.
This is all of the shows that we watch. True TV, you can watch your Impractical Jokers all the time. Being silly, working in dentist's office, just leaning people back in chairs and leaving them. What is on Turner Classic Movies?
So these are going to be one of the things that they said was going to be stuff like The Shining, all the nominated movies throughout the years. And supposedly they worked with Turner Classic Movies to hand curate a list of classic offerings like 2001: A Space Odyssey as well that are going to be available on HBO Max. So this is great because it's not just the WB movies. It's also stuff that Turner Classic has the rights to show on their channel. They then work out a deal with HBO Max to also make it available to all of us.
I, for my whole life until this moment, thought Turner Classic Movies was old westerns, and I was so confused every time you said you wanted that channel. Because I didn't know why you wanted to watch old westerns. But I think it was because who was Conan? Who had Ted Turner, somebody, I don't know. He had somebody.
Ted Turner, I think, or something.
Come in with sitting on a horse with a hat. So I think that's where it got jumbled.
Are there any of these particular third parties that you are excited for? Like I've got TCM, Crunchyroll, some anime. You're going to watch some anime?
I need to catch up on some anime. Send me your faves because I'm ready.
I hope that Adult Swim includes stuff like
Robot
Toonami,
Chicken?
Cobot, Robot Chicken, and all of the old Toonami stuff that we grew up with, the anime, the Gundam, also Cowboy Bebop, everything. If it's on there, that makes this offering even better.
Already, I think they have such an extensive list, though, and just a very solid, very filling list that this is already worth the price.
Do you think this is more like a expanded Netflix model or even Hulu? It's kind of a hybrid of the two because you have these different channels on there, just like Hulu has with a few networks, but then you have the full component of movies, which Warner Brothers, of course, has a ton of, being one of the largest studios out there. What separates this from the other services? Because
it's more high end. You get better shows. You get better put together shows. I think HBO has a larger budget. So whereas Netflix, and I love and enjoy Netflix and the things that we get from there, but they're just throwing content at us. And some of the content is pretty cool. And some of the content is not so well put together. Whereas HBO, I feel like everything that I've ever witnessed from them, while maybe it's not to my taste, is still done very well and very tastefully, even with all the boobs everywhere.
And to anyone that saw and noticed that the TNT is on there, we are going to get news and sports in 2021. So a few years down the line, maybe I can watch a little bit of baseball.
They also announced that existing HBO subscribers and AT&T customers will receive HBO Max at no extra charge.
That's right. If you're already paying for HBO Go, it's already $14.99 a month. HBO Max, also $14.99 a month. So come May 2020, you will get that upgrade of Looney Tunes, DC Comics, CNN, TNT, everything under the sun pretty much, for that same price if you're already an HBO Go member. So I think this is also trying to convince people of two things. One, to retain their service if they had maybe considered dropping it because of Game of Thrones ending. Or two, which is where I'm at, jumping onto HBO Go early, because if you're already going to get that HBO Max upgrade in May, you can in the meantime catch up on those HBO shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm, like Watchmen right now.
How did I know you were going to say Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Well, the one thing I really want to catch up on is Watchmen, because I've had about 15 subs already tell me every Wednesday, hey, did you see Watchmen? Did you watch episode 2? Dude, it is good. There's references to the books like crazy. And all of these little Easter eggs that they're putting in there, and they're saying that the show is actually fucking solid. That is almost getting me on the boat early just for Watchmen. Not even for the rest of the stuff, and I really want to check it out now. It's probably going to be a few more weeks before I do take that jump, and the only thing I am concerned with is having to re-sign up for that HBO Max upgrade. But if they make that seamless, where they're like, hey, now all of these things are available with HBO, then perfect. That'd be great, and that might be what I'm waiting for.
Is there like a 2-week free trial for HBO Go?
I think there's an 1 week trial on it right now, 7 days.
So we just do what that meme does and we'll put on different disguises and change our email address.
To anyone curious, in 2021 as well, they are going to have an ad-supported version. They haven't said what kind of costs this will have. I'm thinking it's going to be the Hulu model where you'll have a cheaper version, but then you have to sit through ads.
Probably. That seems to be a profitable way for them. And yeah, are we really going to pay the extra $3 a month to not sit through ads?
One of the biggest things that got a lot of people angry and upset on Twitter, especially on my feed, is that they were watching the whole presentation live. They were live tweeting about the additions, the Green Lantern stuff, and they did not mention at all the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And that was a big thing that we were expecting. We were saying, hey, this is an opportunity right now, Warner Brothers, to get a bunch of people on the service if you announce that it's going to be exclusive on HBO Max for the first couple of weeks, or however they want to market it. If you make that available on there, and then you open up the subscription sign up right then and there, that they could have then had a spike of subscribers, especially if you made it the 1 year lock. Then you've secured over $100 right then and there for people to be able to watch the Snyder Cut nice and early.
I don't think that that's the right way to go for the Snyder Cut. I get what you're saying, but I think from a marketing standpoint, you don't want to have to rely on that one thing that's going to pull people in. You want the whole service to be what pulls people in. Additionally, you don't want to limit people or alienate people by saying, oh, well, you have to get it here first, right? If we get this magnificent thing that is the Snyder Cut, I think it would be a disservice to say only certain people can get it first, because then you open it up to it being pirated way more than if you just say, here, it's readily available.
So you think they should go, if they have it on HBO Max, they should have it there and Blu-ray and 4K and digital all at once, just to make it available as many places as possible. I can see that. I think what mainly people were hungry for is just any confirmation or mention of it. And we were hoping that this would have been the right platform to showcase that, or at least make an announcement for it.
I understand that hope, but I don't think it's the right platform, because again, you want the showpiece to be, look at all the amazing things we're bringing you with this service, not we'll get this because we have this one thing.
Another hope that I was seeing from a lot of mutuals was that they grab Zack Snyder just like Netflix did for a Warner Brothers or DC project. You know, he's got the Army of the Dead that he will be coming out with on Netflix. They just wrapped up filming for that. If they say, all right, Zach, you obviously have a strong following. You've got a fan base that will follow you and will support you based on all the previous years of work that you've done. Why don't you come back to the DC universe and let's have you, whatever you want to do next, we'll have our hands off and you can do it. Do you think that's feasible? Do you think he would just say, nah, I'm all right. I think I'm just going to go do my own thing over here?
Potentially. It would depend on what project they give him, or, you know, you're saying totally hands off. I don't think any studio would ever be totally hands off. They would probably come to him and say, hey, we're looking at these 3 or 4 different franchises or, you know, characters, right? Which one interests you? Are you interested in doing one for these? And then he could decide from there, and it would depend on if he really had a story to tell behind these characters.
I had a couple people ask me what this meant for the future of the DC Universe service, which is a separate thing. They mentioned here that you're going to get Doom Patrol Season 2 on there, as well as DC Universe. Well, the service, whoever runs the account, put out a statement addressing the concerns about the future, and they said, quote, "Our Warner Media partners made some exciting news today, and we're psyched. We also want to assure you that DC Universe is still going strong with an exciting year of super fan service coming through this year and next. From our original programming, library of beloved series, ever-expanding comic library, real-world events, and our just-launched all-new community, we're just getting started," end quote.
I don't think this is any cause to be alarmed that DC Universe will end, because they offer so much more than just the show. And I think or their shows, and I think a lot of people use it for more than just the shows, because even if you take all their movies and everything and transfer it over to HBO, one, I don't think it would really fit. I don't know, I say that, but they're getting Looney Tunes. I was going to say I don't think it fits the theme of HBO, but regardless, you're not going to be able to move all the comics over there as well. I mean, I guess they could in theory, but it's not really, I don't know, it doesn't seem to fit the theme of HBO, right? Sign into your HBO account, watch some nudie movies, and read some comic books.
As much as you and I don't do the digital comic thing, You mentioned them right away. That is a huge thing for a lot of these subscribers, for a lot of these services. Many people, while they're not buying that particular trade or physical issue, they're like, well, it's already in my service. Why don't I try, John Constantine Hellblazer during Halloween, and maybe I'll try some of those older issues and start really diving into books that you otherwise normally would not have ever read. So that's a huge component of DC Universe and a big thing to retain on there, and something that, yes, you will not see on HBO Max, but they did mention that all the Batman movies are going to be on HBO Max. What's not on there, though, is the full Timverse, or the animated DC movies, and those are also huge. We would not have seen Batman Hush as quickly had it not been for DC Universe. We're now about to go watch the new Wonder Woman animated movie, and that's another thing that maybe we would not have caught if it weren't for the DC Universe, or at least right away. So there are so many offerings already, and even the old Fleischer Superman cartoons, you're not going to see those on HBO Max.
Right.
As much of DC belugas as we are, yes, we're going to keep DC Universe. Yes, we're going to have HBO Max. And we're keeping Netflix.
The reason we're broke.
Exactly. The reasons we're broke. And we're not getting Disney Plus. So sorry, but that's going to be our thing. We've made our choices, and those are going to be the three that we definitely keep and actively, I say actively, but the ones that we are going to watch.
When we have time.
Exactly.
I don't think we're going to be able to watch HBO in front of Leo.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a late night thing.
You could do like Looney Tunes.
Right.
Maybe some Crunchyroll, but Watchmen series, don't think so.
Will they be smart and have a kids section where they do have things like Looney Tunes, kind of like Netflix does?
I think they should be smart and do that, yes.
Another movie that is hitting the HBO Max service, they advertised it during the presentation, is the Joker film. And recently, Deadpool star Ryan Reynolds tweeted his congratulations to the movie for breaking Deadpool 2's record for the highest grossing R-rated film of all time.
He tweeted, quote, "R-rated box office congratulatory posts aren't like the ones you're used to," end quote.
The tweet included an image of the Joker movie poster, and each step has the previous record holder. So it's got Deadpool, it says Jesus, it says Ted, and then at the very top it says you, motherfucker.
Brilliant. Love it.
Not something I honestly would have seen, especially the weeks leading up to it. And yes, I'm beating a dead horse by saying it, but all of the things that it had going against it, and it ended up working very well for the Joker film, and not a record I thought would happen. I knew it was going to do well because of the smaller budget. It was going to be profitable, but holy shit, at this level, it's absolute insanity.
We had to talk about this, or I spoke about this with someone at work, because they walked up and they're like, "Did you hear that the Joker broke the record?" I'm like, "Psh, that's old news. Get out of here." But we were talking about it, and I said, I really think that part of that strong push behind it is this is a movie rated R that you would still feel okay taking your teenager to, because there's really not a lot of sex in it. There's not more violence than they see in anywhere else, even on TV. And it really drives home that message about mental instability and how important it is to look at the world differently and look at these people differently.
I'm not sure if I quite agree with that as far as a teenage viewing this, because I do think that it deals with a lot of the mental changes and problems that you could go with. And it could
I'm
hit
not
a
talking
little
like 13-year-old, but like a mature 16, 17-year-old.
There are some heavy themes here that aren't exactly explicit. As far as content, like you said, there's not nudity, there's not real heavy violence or blood, but it is very heavy on the mind, I would say. So, I don't know. I think that's a little bit extreme, but I do think that absolutely teens did go and see this, because I have had teens come in with their parents and ask for Joker posters from the movie. And I'm like, holy shit. No, we don't have that because it's not a merchandise property. Now it is, but it's not something that you see any Funko Pops even. And Funko do them for everything, but they didn't do it for the Joker
because
film.
They know the sanctity. Going back to the other argument, though, I would throw out the argument that I don't know that it hits quite as hard. Those heavy themes hit quite as hard for teenagers and younger people than it does for adults, though, because I feel like every adult has been there with that one bad day, and kids not as much.
There are a lot of rumblings still about whether or not there will be a Joker sequel.
There's
some
not going to be a
news.
Joker. There's not going to be a Joker sequel.
If Joaquin Phoenix decides to return for a sequel, it would be the very first time in the actor's career. He has spoken in the past about, yes, he is open to the idea. They have not yet confirmed it. I know Todd Phillips, the director, said that if they had ideas for a sequel, they would still be filming now and would have included it in the first film. However, money talks. It is making a shit ton of money.
I get that, but I feel like he had such a great vision behind this and he understood what this movie was about and the message of the movie. And I don't think that he would turn his back on that and say, well, now let's smush in a sequel to fit into this. It was so perfect the way it all wrapped up, the way it ended. It was perfect. So what are you going to do with the sequel? And yes, I don't write movies. I get that. I'm not saying like, oh, you can't do anything because obviously they could think something up. But I think it would absolutely discredit what they've already done to then try to dive back into people's minds and say, hey, let's do this again, because it just created so much positive buzz and positive talk around these situations that I don't think a sequel would be as impactful.
I 100% disagree that it would discredit what they've already set up, because anything that you already create and make will never be erased by anything that comes afterward. It's just like when they were doing the Ghostbusters reboot with the all-female cast and people were saying they're ruining my childhood. It's like, no, they're not. They're not ruining the thing that you enjoyed. They're not ruining the thing that you have. There's that cartoon online of the guy saying, what? They're ruining my childhood. And he looks around and his posters are being erased. And he's like, no. And I think it's the same with this Joker film. If they make one sequel, two sequels, 18,000 sequels, and make TV show spin-offs and recast a future Joker film that still takes place in this continuity, it will never affect what they've already done with this installment. I don't think it cheapens it because you still have this thing that was so strong. If you decide that other things that come around it or before it or after it are cheapening that thing, that's on the viewer and on the consumer. It's not on the piece itself.
But let me ask you this. What if they make the sequel and then they answer more of those questions that we had in the first one? Like, is Thomas Wayne really his father?
I think that once again, it whatever, even if they decide that, yes, none of this ever happened, even if they decided to go extreme as that, it will never affect this standalone piece.
But you also view movies differently than other people do. You can go back and watch the movie and change your mindset of, okay, this is now a standalone. This is this one thing, even though those sequels come after that. Not everybody can do that. Oh,
I agree 100%. And I'm just saying how I'm viewing this by saying these things, I'm hoping that I can convince one other person, and maybe people already know this and they agree and they're like, no, he's right. I can view each thing as a standalone and not let a sequel or a prequel ruin that one thing. But if getting that information out there and maybe having someone view it a little bit differently, I'm just going for that and at least sharing how I would still appreciate that first piece, whether or not the sequel or a non-prequel or nothing ever happens around it, better or worse.
Have you seen Mulan 2?
Never from the beginning. Did that ruin Mulan 1 for you?
Every time I see the scene when he's talking about beef, pork, and chicken, and that lady drops next to him, I'm like, well, that's his wife from the second movie.
And that ruined it for you?
I won't say it ruined it, but it changed it. It changed the movie for me, and I still enjoy Mulan very much. Mm-hmm. But every time I watch that movie, I think of Native American Li Shang in the second movie, and I think of how the emperor really has 3 daughters hiding somewhere in the palace who saved them, right? It changed that experience for me because I have so much more knowledge. And yes, I can still view Mulan and enjoy it, but that's where my mind wanders to while I watch it.
And one thing I will also say about the Joker film is I do like that they built this as a one-shot, a standalone. Mm-hmm. We don't plan on doing sequels for it. And I think that's why it did so well and was so strong, is because this wasn't just there to make up this world and to set up the next one, and it wasn't just a placeholder. And if they treat every installment earnestly like that, and I'm not talking sequels or prequels, I'm just saying every film that they do, whether it is a standalone or prequel, and make sure that it is strong by itself without anything around it, I think that's going to lead to the longevity of that film. And it's going to get people to remember those movies and rewatch them in the long run, which I think is what has made the DC Extended Universe stronger than what the MCU did.
I would definitely agree with that. We can agree on that. That point.
There we go.
Yes. Treat it like it's a standalone. Perfect.
Sticking on the DC Comics side of things, but now moving on over to the comics, readers noticed from the latest previews catalog, which we will cover next week, so that'll give you an extra week to go through it, that Tom King's promised Batman Catwoman #1, which featured the Mask of the Phantasm herself, the solicitation was missing. And Tom had to take to Twitter to find out what had happened.
He said, quote, "While working on the initial issues of Batcat, Clayman and I started to realize we might have something good here. A Mr. Miracle or a Vision in the world of Batman. An attempt to do what Frank Miller did with The Dark Knight Returns. So Clay offered to do the whole thing at 22 pages. But he'd of course need time. When the best artist in comics says, let's do it right, you don't say no." End quote.
I'm not a fan of Clayman as a person. He's kind of a dick. I'm going to be fair with you. I've seen him at several conventions and several panels.
Clayface?
Clayface is nicer than Clayman.
Oh, man. Ooh, shots fired.
Have you not seen the animated series? Way nicer. But he's a hell of an artist. Clayman is a great artist. He's kind of like Neil Adams. Really good artist. It'll be $30
nice next year.
But this is why the Batman Catwoman issue has been pushed back quite a bit. As we always say, delay it for quality, fine. Make the better book that's going to stand better in 10 years than the one that's coming out today, but maybe isn't quite what you wanted it to be. As they're talking about this, as they're writing this, do you think it's going to be at that level of Mr. Miracle where it could win Eisner's if they're doing a Batman Catwoman relationship story?
That's really tough. I don't think so. Because I feel with Mr. Miracle, there weren't a lot of expectations of the character from a large crowd. Yes, I'm sure there were Mr. Miracle hardcore fans who said, this is my Mr. Miracle, this is what I want to see. But the audience as a whole wasn't really expecting a whole lot. I'm expecting a whole lot from Batman and Catwoman. So me personally, I want to see love, I want to see healing, I want to see them being awesome together. But you've already said that you don't really like their interactions that he's given them.
Right.
So you go in with a different expectation than I do. And I think there's just many more eyes on this. I hope it's as fantastic as he feels that it is. And the fact that he has that feeling that it's up to par with Mr. Miracle is a good sign as well, because he hasn't said that about his previous run with them. But again, I just think there's more pressure on this book. And it's not going to make as many people happy as I feel Mr. Miracle did.
Especially when you're including a character as huge as Andrea Belmont. So now you're playing with nostalgia. Now you're playing with one of the greatest...
You're playing with fire.
The greatest Batman anything of all time, which is Batman the Animated Series. You're now including that in this comic book, so you better be goddamn careful with how you handle that and how you implement that into the main continuity of the DC Universe.
Cut to like months from now and we're like, this is the greatest thing ever.
We will absolutely review issue #1 right here on the podcast.
The last bit of news that we have for you this week is what's new on Netflix. This is the November 2019 highlights.
So much streaming news this week. The first one on our list is Grease.
Don't like it.
For all the moms out there, they'll watch that.
Moms don't.
Moms love Grease.
Not this mom.
That's true. Well, yeah, you're right. You're now a mom.
Yeah, sure am. Have been for 2 years. Where you been?
Also, Mobile Suit Gundam, Iron-Blooded Orphan Seasons 1 and 2. Gundam's another series that, just from what we play in the store, I'm like, I might like this. There's a lot of interaction there with the different characters. It's not just robots fighting and killing each other, but there are so many Gundam series that it's like, I wouldn't even know where to start.
I never cared about Gundam, but I also just thought it was robots fighting. So yeah, let's definitely give it a shot. We also have the Matrix trilogy. Doing that like backwards, avoiding the bullets was huge in middle school.
And I think they just announced another Matrix installment that will take place in this continuity, so that'll get people right back in. Zombieland, we have the sequel that I know didn't do too well in the box office, but if you want to watch the first one before you see the sequel, that's available next month, or rather this month now.
We also have District 9. I remember loving this movie.
Caught that in theaters. The makeup work was incredible. I say sets, but it's not really a set. They didn't have a green screen. They didn't build something. They actually had some really neat setups with the poverty and how they treated the district, how they really made this district alive. So very fascinating and definitely worth a watch. We also have Undercover Brother 2.
What?
The first one came out back when I was in high school. It's been so many years now, and the sequel is coming out, and I'm curious as to whether or not this ties in exactly with the same actors.
What is Undercover Brother 1?
So it's a parody blaxploitation film where they take all of the old tropes from the 70s and make it into almost like an Austin Powers-ish type movie where they took the spy elements and made Austin Powers. The first one wasn't great, but I enjoyed it for what it was, and I'll be seeing the sequel one too. I think I like Black Dynamite better, and I felt that they did that a little bit more, even artistically, where they had the same camera shots where they zoomed in, just like in the 70s, whereas Undercover Brother was more of a modern take on it, even though it had those old elements. But I'll still at least give this one a shot.
We also have The Irishman.
This is Martin Scorsese's project. This is what he moved on from the Joker film to work on.
Martin Scorsese.
A lot of people are saying this might be one of the main contenders to go against the Joker film for Best Picture, which would be crazy. And this is one we absolutely have to check out. No excuse if you have Netflix. Watch The Irishman.
We also have The Movies That Made Us, Season 1, which includes Dirty Dancing, Home Alone, Ghostbusters, and Die Hard. I
love Netflix's The Toys That Made Us, and if it is in that same format, this is another one that could go on for a very long time. I think it could outlast The Toys That Made Us because there are so many movies that define pop culture, define what we do today, that inspire movies of tomorrow, that this is a show that will resonate with a lot of people, especially people our age. You have something like Die Hard in there. Holy shit. Home Alone. This is crazy. They're going to have the scene with Donald Trump in there, and that'll be a thing as well in that show. I'm excited for The Movies That Made Us.
One that you left off the list, but it's more important than all of these movies. The Christmas Prince 3 is coming out. I didn't even know we needed this. Yes, I'm so excited.
Just in time for Christmas.
Yes. Netflix is supposedly launching a lot of Hallmark-style Christmas movies, and I'm all about it. I'm going to eat all those up. You're going to come home from work, and I'll be crying on the couch. You'd be like, Kelly, what's wrong? And I'll be like, she came back to the small town, and Santa helped her find love.
It's Christmas, Daniel.
It's Christmas.
It's Christmas.
It's Christmas. Christmas love.
So as we mentioned earlier, these are just the highlights. We hope you enjoyed those. But if you want to watch and see the full list, head on over to Google What's New on Netflix November 2019 for a full list.
But that does wrap up the end of our news this week. And now we can move into our Patreon shoutouts.
First shout out goes out to Alexander on Twitter at Swordfish Show. You can also head on over to purpleswordfish.com. It will redirect you straight to his YouTube channel.
Alex has been playing Madden 20 Tampa Bay Bucks franchise mode.
A lot of grinding with Madden, and you can keep up with Alex at purpleswordfish.com.
Our next shout out goes out to Lourdes and Katie.
Katie's been enjoying seeing Deathstroke develop in Titans Season 2.
Cool, I guess.
We still have to watch it, yeah.
I know. It's on our list, the ever-growing list of things we need to watch.
Bobby on Twitter is our next shout-out. You can find them at Cuban Slim.
Bobby tagged a bunch of us in a video of a Bears fan losing his shit after they lost.
It was pretty funny because the guy just starts crying. He's like, I'm done with this shit. He takes off his Bears shirt and he runs into his room. And what's hanging up in his room but a poster of Marvel, and then underneath it is Star Wars. I'm like, of course he's a fucking MCU sheep, this crybaby. I bet you he likes the Sonic redesign. That was so great. Thanks for tagging us in that, Bobby.
I bet he likes that redesign, but he's still not going to go see the movie.
Absolutely. Next shout out goes out to John on Twitter at John72Tex or on Instagram at Johnny2Chips.
John posted, quote, "Getting ready for the Watchmen HBO show next weekend. Just finished rereading the original series for the 5th time, I think," end quote.
Well done, John. And I can't wait to hear your thoughts on HBO's Watchmen.
And our final shout out this week goes out to Neil, whose Twitter handle is @inmats68.
He tweeted out, quote, "The B-17 Texas Raiders in flight. I'll never get tired of seeing these living pieces of history. Hashtag wings over Dallas. Hashtag World War II." He got an amazing shot of one of those planes. I don't know how he did it because it's obviously way up there.
Right.
But it's an awesome show, or at least it looked like an awesome air show for him. So really neat that he's going to a lot of these different Dallas activities, and you can definitely check it out on his Instagram. Very, very involved in that and in sports.
So thank you so much, Neil, John, Bobby, Lourdes and Katie, and Alexander for your contribution to our Patreon.
If you want to be heard on the podcast, you can leave us a voicemail. It is at speakpipe.com/thereasonsimBroke. There's also a link in today's description. If you want to send over a comment or a question, we might include it on the next episode.
And if you just want to get a shout out for as little as $1 a month, that's 25 cents an episode, you can become a Patreon backer as well.
Every bit of that goes right back into the podcast and makes the show possible. So huge thanks for supporting the show.
But with our Patreon shoutouts completed, we can move into our comic book highlight of the week.
This week we have another one-shot from the Tales of the Dark Multiverse with Death of Superman #1.
This is written by Jeff Loveness with art by Brad Walker and Andrew Hennessy.
To anyone unfamiliar with the Tales from the Dark Multiverse, they are essentially negative, well, I guess the What If comics were also kind of a bad ending, but they are What If, and they take an alternate take on these major DC milestones in comics, which of course the Death of Superman was a huge thing. Everyone was buying 2 copies, 3 copies to later become millionaires because they killed off the greatest superhero of all time. And it was huge, but this is a what if. What if Lois Lane went a negative route to this event? And how did this resonate with you?
I really enjoyed it. I think I liked it more than I thought I would, and we'll talk about it a little bit more before I mention my favorite part. But I really related to Lois and that grief that she would feel losing somebody that she loved so much. But additionally, the kind of hatred that she felt for the Justice League and really everybody, because here she was in love with this man. And, you know, we're seeing the funeral now from her point of view where she can't even see him. She's stuck in the back of the crowd, and it doesn't make sense for her to be up front by still keeping this persona of who he really is.
Yeah, and just a quick warning that we will go into spoilers with this review. Not that this is leading into like some major event or anything like that, but I just wanted you guys to know before we really go into the details of this. And I think that one part that was really resonating with Lois and the readers and all of us, and at least I made a connection here, is it cuts to Hal Jordan waving during the funeral. And I don't know if that's an original part of the comic. I should have bought the dollar reprint because that also came out at the same day as this issue. So you can kind of compare the original book to this what if. But she's saying they just want to be seen. They weren't there when he was fighting and dying, but they'll show up for his funeral because now it's safe, because now they're heroes. Now they're going to be seen. And yes, while she is ignoring the heroes that did fight next to Superman and did get defeated by Doomsday, there's also this resentment towards the heroes that were not there that are now showing up in honor of Superman. And that's the reason they were showing up, but she is viewing it as a different thing. And one thing that was also made clear in her negativity was that Superman was a waste to humans, where she says, this whole world and civilization threw its very last bit of hope out into space, and we got that gift. And not only did we squander it, but as soon as he died, this should have changed the world, and it didn't, because weeks later, we were right back to wars, right back to conflicts, right back to greed. And that's such a real world thing where we've seen this even in our history of constant sacrifice and major events, and the war to end all wars, and it continues. And I think that's something that we can all really relate to, especially if you're viewing it. But she took that as an extra motivation to, we don't deserve this. Superman was not honored in the right way. And she ends up with the power to really do something about punishing criminals and punishing the world for what they really drove Superman to.
I think her reaction is so relatable, though, because it's something that would be buried in each of us, right? So I really think that very few people, when given these powers, given the chance to change the world, would say, well, let me just do it in such a loving way, right? I think a lot of us would say, well, it's easier just to kill these people. I have the power. I'll be the bad guy. I'll save millions because this one person has to die. Mm-hmm. And one of the people she goes after is Lex, right? And does what Superman never could. And she mentions that several times, right? I'm going to do what you never could because you were weak, because you couldn't do these things. Like when she goes after the Joker and kills the Joker, and Batman's like, you can't do this. And she's like, oh, well, I did. Boom, got you too.
We never see what happens, but I like to imagine that he seduced her.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I'll spare you. And then I see what he saw in you.
I'll spare you.
Because we never saw a body. We just,
she just
see a bright
away.
light.
Yeah.
When she came, like
Is that what it was?
Those are her new powers. And the other thing too, and the dark ending to this, which also hit us very much like the Broken, as we saw that first one shot, Tales from the Dark Multiverse, is that she ends up inadvertently also killing Superman as he's resurrected, just like in the death of Superman. He does come back. He's got the black suit, but he's also weaker, just like in the original run. But in her trying desperately to save him and not letting anyone hurt him or kill him again, she ends up killing him. And the message of the book, and you see it, I believe, in the back of the comic, it says to live in the moment now and not worry about what you may lose. And that's what ended up making her lose out on the love of her life. And it's like an extra layer of like, this really solidified her as this villain in this particular continuity or in this universe of things.
And I still felt for her. I was still like, I'm sorry, Lois. You just had a tough life, Lois. It's okay. I will say the one thing that I really, really loved in this book, and it's never been brought to my attention before in all the years we've been reading Superman, but she's kind of wondering throughout the book how he can have all this power, be able to hear all these things, and still love the world as much as he does. And we get that panel of the Kents pulling him out of the spaceship, and I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of like, these two people brought him in with love and he was something crazy that fell out of the sky, right? And they pulled him in and they loved him. And how freaking powerful is that? Like, to just think that behind Superman, yes, he comes from another planet to be the savior and yada, yada, yada. But behind all of that, it's the love of the Kents and the love that they gave him as a child that trickled into adulthood to make him the person that he is. And I don't know that ever stuck with me before this moment.
The Kents absolutely created Superman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's like, wow. There was this crazy thing and they're like, nah, we gonna love this baby.
Yeah.
And then they did. And that was my favorite part of the whole book, was just that moment, but mostly because it was such an aha moment for me. But overall, they made her so relatable and likable.
Even though she's like this murdering villain.
Yeah, because you're in her inner thoughts and you understand why she's doing all of these things. And she just wants to honor Superman's memory and doesn't have the emotional capability or the tools to do that.
Very strong entry from the Tales from the Dark Multiverse, another one. And I'm excited. I was going to skip out on the Infinite Crisis one, but the way these are going, I think we're going to stick around for the last 2 or 3 of them.
I would agree. I think we definitely need to. They're 2 for 2 right now with us.
Let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode with the Brocat Block, which are questions from the Brocat Core and where Paul Kelli and I have been this week.
We got some questions submitted this week, so thank you guys so much for reaching out to us on Twitter and asking us this cool stuff that we can talk about, and you can get to know how much cooler I am.
That's right. The first question comes from @NicksNerdNews1, who just put up his second episode on his YouTube channel. Congratulations, Nick, longtime supporter of the show. He asked, quote, "I'm not sure if it's been asked/talked about, but I'm watching Shazam, and the conversation of which superpower would you pick was mentioned. So with that, Daniel and Kelli, which superpower would you pick?" End quote.
Oh, man. Go ahead. You go first.
I've thought about this, and I have different answers, but all of them, to me, would end up in a dark multiverse version of myself. Because here's the thing, like, first I thought, all right, well, maybe like mind reading would be cool, but then that would fuck with your head.
Yeah.
It would affect how you talk to people, and you would inevitably let it happen, or it would be known that you can read minds. Another one was predicting the future, which would be awesome, but that also comes with negativity, because it's like, all right, well, you already know how everyone is going to act and how you're going to act and what actions you're going to take. The only way I would change that is if you can view the different possibilities and then choose an outcome from there. But even that is like, all right, well, now you're in a Dr. Manhattan scenario where you are a puppet just going along with the motions and you're on strings and you kind of lose connection with everything. Maybe the one thing I don't know, like changing someone's mood to happiness. I know it seems kind of fucking hippie-ish, but
no, I mean, that's the ability to alter people's moods. I could get behind that.
And the other thing is we can almost do that now, though. We just have to work harder at it. If you can try to make someone happy or laugh, or it's tough. I don't know if I have an answer to superpower. I mean, you can say flight, but there's obviously tons of issues with that too. Teleportation, I guess, would be the most useful because you can just get to places real quick. It would save a lot of time.
Yeah, for me, I think my superpower of choice has always changed depending on like what's going on in my life. So when I was an angsty teenager, I was like, I want this superpower of invisibility because I don't know, then I could just be invisible or something stupid shit.
Because now I can look the way I feel.
Just about. I've thought about reading people's minds before, but sometimes I have negative thoughts about my friends, right? Where they piss me off and I think something, and I wouldn't want that to affect my relationship with them because we're human and we all do the same things. I guess I would probably go with teleportation too, because again, just saving a lot of time when I'm running late for work. I could just be like, boop, here I am.
Or how about not needing to sleep, having more energy or unlimited energy to do things?
I like sleeping. Okay, having not needing to sleep, but maybe I still like to sleep, so I could do that. I feel as a mom, could I get one like get my child to do his chores, get him to feed himself?
Mind control.
Yeah, something like that. More hours in the day would be great, but I would just fill it with more things, so that really. Yeah.
Oh, another good. I would do speed reading. Like if I can pick up a book and immediately know everything in the book in like a second.
Like who was that guy who could read the books? There was some Nickelodeon show, Disney show.
Was it an Animorph?
No, but he was like some super genius, and he could like touch a book and like he was an alien. No, he was an alien, but he was also a black kid or something.
I think I vaguely know.
He could touch a book and just read it.
Yeah, I vaguely remember it was on Teen Nick,
Alex
right?
Strange or something?
Something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know he had that power. That's cool.
Yeah,
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, you just absorb everything that's in the book. That would save a lot of time too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that'd be a good one.
Because it's very late in the evening, I'm definitely feeling that exhaustion one. So yeah, to just like be able to snap myself out of exhaustion and get my stuff done and then go to sleep.
Next question comes from Bobby @CubanSlim, who asked, quote, Netflix announced they are essentially all in and pushing head on with no holding back when it comes to the digital streaming wars by investing $2 billion for upcoming projects. This is on top of a mounting debt in the millions. However, they have posted very positive gains this year. Thoughts? Also, they fully intend to investigate and regulate accounts being shared. Thoughts on that? End quote. Thank you, Bobby. He submits one every week, which is awesome. I love it. Thank you so much.
I think it's dangerous how much they're throwing into their exclusive content because I don't feel, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm out of touch, but I don't feel like as many people go to Netflix just for their exclusive content.
Well, that's something they need to, I think, build up. I think they're going in the right direction with it, because as they're losing licenses to movies or TV shows and all of these different platforms are coming out of this, the only thing they have to offer that's different from all of theirs at that point, aside from having different things in one network, which now Warner Brothers is about to have with HBO Max, is to have original content that's going to keep people on there. You bet your ass that if House of Cards were still going and we still had the original,
true.
I'd keep Netflix just for that show. So if you continue to have those exclusives on there, then you're going to retain subscribers. So I do think that is the right move. And as far as the positive gains, that's huge, because I know Warner Brothers said that they expect to be profitable by 2025. So that's another thing that it's like, that's their projection. Who knows if they'll get there. And for the first several years, they're going to be losing money on it. But they're building a platform, they're building a base, they're building subscribers, and over time, it will then turn around to make them profits, which they're then going to invest back into the platform by having these things like original programming, which I think is where Netflix is at now. With something like The Irishman, that is a legitimate movie that Martin Scorsese made for Netflix. If they continue to have shit like that, it's going to keep viewers very serious when they view Netflix and when they choose to retain their subscription.
What about them cracking down on shared accounts?
I'm curious as to how much of a conversion they'll have then from people that they lock out and say, hey, you got to buy your own subscription if you want to continue this. How many of those people are going to then buy the service, and how many are just going to not bother and not show up? Because if you do lose those that are just sharing an account, you're not losing money really. You're just losing someone or a viewer.
Right.
However, that's now one less person that has Netflix on their mind, one less person that's saying, oh yeah, I saw that on Netflix, which is also a word of mouth type of marketing as people talk back and forth. So there's some give and take there. I honestly don't know enough about what the statistics and numbers would be.
I think in total they will grow in their subscription service, because I think there are enough people who will say, well, I was really enjoying watching Stranger Things and now I'm kicked out of this account, so I guess I should just go ahead and get my own. I feel like it's not, and I don't know how much it is now, $8 a month?
It keeps going up.
Did it go up?
I think it's like 12 or 10, yeah.
Even still, it's still fairly low. It's on the lower end of some of the other subscriptions that you can get, especially for being ad-free.
That's a huge thing, yeah. People forget that it's ad-free.
Right. And so I think that they definitely will, as they're cracking down, get more subscribers out of that. At the same time, I do think there are people who say, well, I wasn't really watching it that much, so whatever, it's fine. My real question is, what are they doing to the people who are sharing the accounts? Are they just saying, please don't share? I'm
sure there's a way to lock out IP, because it's IP address tied in, so you can say, okay, that device, you can't log in from that anymore. You can only have 3 devices, which would be your phone, maybe your PlayStation or whatever, and then a computer, a desktop, and that'd be the 3. I think they have up to 5 right now. I'm not too sure. But they could also do the thing that Hulu does, in which they require you to change your password every year or so. So that inevitably cuts down on viewers that are like, oh shit, I don't want to ask that person for the password. How
are people going to punish their friends now?
I don't know.
I saw a thread the other day of just people cutting off their friends from Netflix, and they'd message, be like, yo, what's the Netflix password? And they'd like make up something like, not your dumb ass, or something like that.
That's funny. Yeah, thank you so much, Bobby, for the question. And also, Nick, let's go ahead and wrap up the show with what's been going on this week.
My week is a standard week, stressing because of school, because that's what I do. Just trying to balance a lot of things. Had like an employee just quit out of the blue the other day, but whatever. I did have some unfortunate news. I went to the dermatologist this week because like I've been having some icky patches of skin, and I've never been to the dermatologist, and I want to keep looking young for you so that you just have a beautiful wife all the time. And so I went to the dermatologist, and she looked at my face, and she's like, well, that's rosacea. And I was like, okay, whatever. And she goes, it's caused by coffee. Do you drink a lot of coffee? I was like, oh, man. So now I have to cut down my coffee consumption, which granted was very high.
Yes, it was.
Anywhere from 4 to 8 shots of espresso a day. I mean, whatever. I'm just living my life. I'm just trying to live.
It's easy to do when you work at a coffee shop.
Yeah. So yeah, I got to cut down on my coffee. For the most part, that was it. Oh, I made Leo's Halloween costume. He's going to be Steve from Blue's Clues.
Yes.
So that'll be a lot of fun. I had to get the shirt and then like spray paint it the right colors because they don't sell Steve shirts. And I'm pretty happy with the outcome.
And not spray paint, just so you guys know, it's like a fabric spray.
Fabric spray paint.
Yeah.
It's baby safe, I promise.
We had a Halloween Comic Fest. I had mentioned that last week, but it actually happened now this past weekend. And that was fun. Yeah, it had a lot of people come out. Had regulars come out in costume. I posted up
That's awesome.
the Twitter images for some of those. And it created a memory for anyone that came out. It's like, oh shit, free comics, free candy. Their kids had fun. They came out. It's almost like early trick-or-treating. And I think that's always the key to any business is creating a positive memory that even if it's their first time or seventh time or second time this week, that they need to come out and have a positive experience at your store. And that has a longer term effect on customers than I think people realize. And, always important to have those kinds of events. And I was really happy with it. I did give feedback to Diamond distributors to hopefully pass on to the publishers of make sure to have an exclusive comic for Halloween Comic Fest. And I don't mean like have the banner on there because those already have it, but not just full reprints. Do it like Free Comic Book Day, where both DC and Marvel had an original story in one of their offerings so that it made it so that the readers, the subscribers, had to come out to catch that book. Most of my subs, they were like, yeah, they're all reprints. I'm probably just going to skip. I already have Deceased #1, so I'll be good. And that's what I told them. I'm like, no, make sure you have at least one original story in one of these so that my subs can also come out and have something to read because they're readers. They're not... Most of my subs are readers by heart and not looking to flip something. So they are there for the story. And those are the people that I think should be catered to as publishers because they're going to be there tomorrow and the next day if you retain those stories.
That sounds so fun. Did you have leftover candy?
Yes, which we did buy extras and they're going to give it out on Halloween. By the time this releases, will have been tomorrow. And if we have any more, you got to come in and get some.
Why don't you just bring it home for me?
It's Florida. It'll melt.
It sure will. I'm really excited for Halloween, though. I think that will be a lot of fun. We'll be able to take Leo out, and he'll be able to enjoy his first real, like, trick-or-treating experience.
We will let you know how that is next week.
But that does wrap up what happened with our week, and as well as the show.
Don't forget, you can find us on thereasonsimbroke.com. You will find a link to our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, everywhere you can find us. As always, you can submit a question at any time. Don't wait for a tweet or anything. Just submit it, tweet it right on over to us, and we may answer it right here on the show. Huge thanks to all of our subscribers, followers, and you for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I've been Preppy Villain Daniel.
And I'm your Emperor Pal Kelli.
And Brocat Core.
All will be well.